undocumented at all. What's happening to him, how much time he's spending in, why he's spending in, the story of how he got arrested, the story of him on January 6th, which tells his entire tale. And then, until next time, stay informed, and most importantly, stay free.
I'm immune to donkeypox.
The opportunity to sit down and speak with two members of Congress, Mr. Andy Biggs from Arizona, as well as Mr. Brian Babin from Texas. And I asked them very straight up, how could this be happening? What legal justification does the state have to hold these people pending trial, as well as whether, if the Republicans were to take back the House come the midterms, will there be any investigations? Will there be any investigations into how this happened, why this happened, as well as any possible relief for the people who have been sitting behind bars for 19 to 20 months? Take a listen. We recently published a documentary called The Real Story of January 6th.
Yes.
And I had a small cameo in it because I called up and I had an interview with a he calls himself a political prisoner, and I tend to agree. It's a man who's been sitting in jail for 18 months now in solitary confinement for having been there on January the 6th. What is your opinion on that? How is it possible that we have so many, 40 to 50 people who are in solitary confinement to this day from J6?
It is appalling, Roman. The thought of some American who may have misbehaved, okay? I'm not excusing riotous behavior or anything like that, but everybody should have due process under the law. The Constitution guarantees against cruel and unusual punishment. You cannot have trials delayed for political purposes. You cannot be put in solitary confinement. You cannot be denied medical treatment. You cannot be denied the evidence that is against you. And some of them haven't even been charged. And no one was armed. There was no arms. They keep calling it an insurrection on January the 6th. I can tell you the January 6th Commission, which is really nothing but a witch hunt, is not to find out the truth about what happened on January the 6th. They're out to attack the opponents of the Democrat Party. That's what they're trying to do. We even know that some of these prisoners, at least one that I know of, has committed suicide. And the thought of somebody's, for whatever reason, even if he had committed a heinous crime, but for someone to have walked into the Capitol building, to be held in solitary confinement and not have evidence shown him, and to be denied medical treatment, the thought about that, and then have someone to commit suicide, it really tears at my heart. And I'm outraged what is going on there in this D.C. circuit and also in this D.C. prison. It's inexcusable. The Democrats keep saying, the Republicans, they're endangering our democracy. Let me tell you who's endangering democracy. It's the Democrats who are doing these types of things that are more fit for the gulags of the old Soviet Union, and the Iranians are the Red Chinese. This is what we're seeing in that D.C. circuit and then that D.C. prison for these prisoners of January the 6th.
To keep somebody in solitary confinement more than 2 weeks violates international law. So we violate international law. I've listened to judges sentence a 69-year-old woman with cancer, basically trespassed. He said, I don't believe your contrition. I don't believe that you're contrite about this. So we're going to put you in jail for 60 days. This is a woman who needs her medical care because she's got cancer. You've got families that have been torn apart. The individual yesterday sentenced to 7 years in prison. This is despair. You ask, how can this happen? This can happen when the media, outside of you guys and a few others, have been complicit. And you've got people in Congress like Liz Cheney, Adam Schiff, Nancy Pelosi. They chose to call this an insurrection. This was not an insurrection. The FBI has the largest manhunt in the history of the United States. For what? For what? Some people that were rioters that came into the Capitol. And is that shocking and bad? Yes, it was shocking and bad. But the disparity that we have seen in their treatment, and people like Antifa and BLM who rioted, or the guy who attacked the police officer in New York City the other day in the subway, he's out in hours. The guy who attempted to assassinate Lee Zeldin, he's out in hours. And these guys are in solitary confinement. Some were denied medical care. This is the outrage of what's happening in America today.
Yeah, and it's really shocking because, especially the guy I was talking to, I spoke to a few, but the one in the movie, I asked him repeatedly. I said, "Well, what is the actual justification for keeping you locked up?" Because that's what I'm most interested in. Because we can talk about the breakdown of the judicial system, but I'm always interested in, okay, in your specific.
I'm immune to donkeypox.